welcome back to the special Halloween episode of the Leaving Eden podcast. I am Gabrielle Hacohen.
Hi, I'm Sadie Carpenter.
And we are here today to talk about Sadie's life in the Independent Fundamental Baptist cult. We are here to educate and to inform our listeners about this cult and to promote freedom of mind, freedom of thought, and freedom of religion.
We really love the idea of people being able to be informed of anything that they're getting into ahead of time.
That's true.
People making their own decisions. Isn't that great?
Yeah, and that's what we're here to talk about. And I would just like to remind all of our listeners that the Leaving Eden podcast is a viewer-supported podcast, and we work hard to bring you not just one, but from now on 2 episodes every week. And so if you enjoy this content, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where we will have bonus content, including show outtakes. And I think that we're planning on doing
Personally, I am interested in a supercut of all the times that I cuss on mic, which have been cut out by my wonderful co-host.
Because we have to technically make this podcast not
because we like to keep it like PG-ish.
Yeah.
But I think that would be really funny. Well, because I also still, if I really get frustrated, I will slip and Baptist cuss. So I'll say something like, "Oh, my sweet sugar muffins." Ugh.
Sweet sugar muffins. Is that what you guys used to say?
Oh, we're going to do an episode about Baptist cussing for sure.
What the fruit? Is that another one?
Yeah, son of a Baptist.
Shut the front door.
Shut the front door is too explicit.
Really?
Yeah.
How is shut the front door too explicit?
I don't know. I just remember not being allowed to say it. But anyway, I want a supercut of all the times that I mess up and curse and all the times that I Baptist curse on accident.
See, I have a friend who I went to college with, and for a while she didn't quite get it. So instead of saying shut the front door, she said close the front door. And people were like,
oh no.
People were confused because they close the front door is something that you would say. You're like, oh, the door is actually open. I'm going to go look for that. But
right. Yeah. Did your friend secretly grow up IFB?
No. She did not. But she told me that story. I thought it was very funny.
That is funny. I just cough instead of laughing right now.
Yeah.
Still got a little bit of wildfire smoke in the air.
It's supposed to rain today, and I am monumentally excited. I am monumentally relieved that there is, in fact, rain on the weather forecast for this week. It's fall, that autumn's coming. I like that season. It's nice.
It is. And as a person with, brightly colored hair, I'm usually not the biggest fan of the Portland rain in general. But I agree with you. I've never been happier to see it coming.
So how does the rain affect your hair?
So when my hair gets wet repeatedly, it fades out faster. And then also if my hair is going to get wet during the day, if I know I'm going to get rained on, I can't wear a white or light colored shirt, because my hair will bleed onto the shirt, and then I'll have a light blue shirt instead of a white shirt. So those two things, I have to plan around my outfits around the rain.
Is that why they say that you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day?
I mean, traditionally, no, but in a Portland sense, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Was your hair your something blue for your wedding?
Yes, it was.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, that's sweet.
Yeah, so we had a bad luck wedding. We got married on Friday the 13th. So I had something old, something new, and something blue, but not something borrowed, I think is how I did it. We skipped one. We did all these, we did almost all the traditions and then mess it up on purpose. And then we adopted a black cat, and so far so good. Yeah, we do the anti superstitious thing.
Yeah, well, if that works for you. Yeah.
So far so good.
Man, I love fall though.
I do, yes.
I do love fall. The air gets crisp. It gets it's sunny out, but it's not cold yet. But it's not too hot.
I like the crisp thing because I I bought this adorable little green green suede dress. And it's high-waisted, so it'll fit me until November, hopefully. But I'm so looking forward to little green suede dress and some leggings and my cherry red Doc Martens.
Nice. That'll be a good look.
It's going to be so cute. I love fall colors. I look good in fall colors. And I get to drink pumpkin spice lattes and walk down the street in my Doc Martens and look adorable.
Of course you like pumpkin spice lattes, of course. No hate though. Because I mean, it's not personally, it's not my taste, but I think that it's nice that people get to enjoy a flavor that they like that is evocative of a certain type of year and is evocative of something that they like.
Well, in the past, I used to literally like go get a pumpkin spice latte and drink it in secret because I didn't want anybody to see me drinking it and think I was basic. So I would go buy my favorite drink and spend all of that money on a drink and like go in the parking lot behind the Starbucks and drink it so nobody would find out. And now I drink what I want when I want.
I want to say that nobody who looks at you and talks to you is going to think that you're basic.
Oh.
You don't have a basic aesthetic at all. Secondly, I want to say that you do know, of course, that you can go to the store and buy pumpkin spice in like a little jar, right? Like you can get pumpkin spice year round. So you could be drinking pumpkin spice lattes in like March if you really wanted to.
Well, I do have the coffee creamer right now, and it is pretty good, but honestly, nothing is as good as the Starbucks version. Nothing tastes the same. It's not pumpkin spice that I like. It's the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte specific mix of flavoring thing. And I know that it is so full of sugar and just so bad for you. So I get like 2 or 3 every fall. And I'm like planning for days ahead of time. It's like, oh no, I don't want to eat ice cream for dinner tonight because I'm going to go to Starbucks tomorrow morning. And like, I'm planning because I really don't like to eat that much sugar just at once.
Also, though, you're pregnant, you can just say, oh, the baby wants pumpkin spice latte. And then.
Yeah, that's true. But if I get gestational diabetes, my life is going to suck until March. So I really have to be like, I'm trying to be on my A game just to try to prevent that because I've had such a like easy and healthy pregnancy so far that I don't want to mess it up. But other than drinkable things, do you have other, like, what else are you excited about for fall?
You know what I'm happy about? I just got to football started up again. I was watching NFL. You know, personally, I prefer college football.
Mm-hmm.
But I love sitting down to watch a good football game. Like my favorite team is the Oregon Ducks, U of O, Oregon Ducks. But, sadly, because of coronavirus, that's not happening this year. But yeah, I mean, I like, it's a great time to go like collect leaves. I think last fall was like one of the, as far as leaves go in Portland, was really quite amazing. It was really quite beautiful. But I like going collecting leaves. I'll press them from time to time. I have a book with a bunch of leaves pressed in it, and that's really fun. Yeah. But like, I love Halloween too. When I was a kid, I would make like elaborate Halloween costumes out of cardboard, duct tape, and I would get started on them in like August. And then they'd barely be done in time. And it was like my favorite thing. Yeah. But I'd usually like make a costume of like a Star Wars character or something. And I would just like come home after school, wouldn't do my homework, but I'd work on the costume.
Oh, so I had to tell you real quickly about this Halloween costume that my baby brother did.
Oh man, tell me about it.
It would have been in 2008, I imagine. So it was an election year, just a couple days before the election.
For Obama
McCain election, yeah.
With Sarah Palin.
So who my mother does an awesome impersonation of, and it's hilarious.
We'll have to.
No, it's really funny.
I'm sure that it is.
So my brother made a cardboard box look like a voting booth, and there was 2 holes where you could put candy inside. In 2 different, so one was voting for Obama and one was voting for McCain. And depending on who you were going to vote for, you could put candy in the right side of the box or the left side of the box.
Interesting.
So then he went home and counted the candy and tried to predict the election. So it was a great, it was like a politics lesson and economics. It was great.
So where were you living at this point?
We were living in the St. Louis area at the time.
Okay, so that was going to be heavily more like Obama.
We got more quantity of pieces for Obama. Like there were like 260 something pieces for Obama and like 100 and something for McCain. But the McCain bag weighed more because it was like individually larger pieces of candy. Which, like,
Okay.
that's an economics lesson. So anyway, that was one of
That's
the
something to
best
think about.
Halloween ideas my dad ever had. My dad is super into like making Halloween costumes for us. So that was one of his best ideas ever.
I'm not too big on candy anymore, but that sounds super fun.
See, now I'm an adult, so now I am about quality of candy, not quantity of candy, because I get to buy my own. And that means I can buy all Reese's peanut butter cups, pretty much.
When I was growing up, my parents lived in an affluent neighborhood, a nice neighborhood. So on the street, like you would go down the street, like, and so like all of the kids from, I guess, from worse neighborhoods, maybe it's not safe to go trick or treating, but they would always, get out like in vans in my neighborhood, and so and they would go look for candy.
Oh yeah, my family used to do that.
Yeah, but it was always funny because like if you lived like on the street, the neighbors on the street, like they would know you and they'd pull out like the special tray, so they'd be like, have the king size. Yeah, they'd be like, oh, you live like my next door neighbor. He would always do that. He'd be like, here's the king size Hershey, or here's the king size Reese's peanut butter cup,
nice.
something like that. Yeah, that's what you get. And like, because like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna be like, oh, you don't live in this neighborhood, you can't come, I saw you get out of that van, you can't come here? Like, no, that's like some.
Right. No, they just had the king size.
There's some places where you hear about people doing that. They're like, or like if you read Nextdoor. Do you ever read Nextdoor? I read Nextdoor sometimes.
I quit because of the area I live in. It's really depressing.
Yeah. See, when I would read the Nextdoor from that area, like it's like the entire they'd be like, how come kids are coming to our can't they get candy in their neighborhood? I'm just like, shut up, Karen. Like, these kids want to go out trick-or-treating, give them candy. Like, come on, like,
you have a house in a nice area of Portland, then you can darn well afford to give some kids some candy. But no, so I got to actually, a lot of people who grow up IFB don't get to do Halloween.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So it's totally random. Okay. Some churches don't do it at all. Will not mention the word Halloween. Like, it's the devil's birthday and like the druids come out at night to kill children. Like, it's like straight up satanic panic. Okay. Absolutely serious. It's in one of those comic books that I showed you that we're going to do an episode on later.
That's funny. But your parents would let you do it.
My parents would let us, like, we knew some families in the church had a problem with Halloween, so we wouldn't go to their house, like, out of just respect. But my parents let us go. We didn't do like ghosts. Our costumes couldn't be ghost or anything demonic or like, so we basically had like the 1950s Halloween experience.
Oh, so you dress up as like a doctor, or like I don't know, like a soldier or something. Yeah.
I had a candy striper outfit one year.
That's kind of cute. How old were you?
Oh, 9. That would have been, I think, the year I was 10.
Oh, that sounds cute. That's fun.
Yeah, I wish I had pictures of that. I do have pictures of one time my dad made my brother into Star Trek characters.
That's fun. But he wasn't like, oh, well, you get to be a Star Trek character.
I was too old. Like, that was like, I had already aged out of the Halloween system.
They wouldn't let you like follow along behind because the parents always got to come with. Oh, okay.
No, unfortunately, like my parents were like, nope, you're done when you're 13. So
that's fair. That's just about the age when you shouldn't do it anymore anyway. Like,
right. I think it's fair enough. Like, let the little kids have candy.
It is for the little kids. Like, once you get into high school.
But my dad had my brothers dressed up as Kirk and Spock. Like, he dyed my blonde brother's hair to be Spock.
That's funny.
And shaved off half of his eyebrows.
Leonard Nimoy.
So my dad did an awesome job on he loves like setting up costumes with us and like when we were little. And
wait, so Star Trek, I have to ask if Star Trek was allowed because you guys like weren't allowed to watch.
Star Trek was definitely not allowed. My parents just liked it. So my parents had like VHS tapes of the original series and like some of TNG. They had cut the commercials out of the tape. So there was nothing like, except for the content of the show itself.
Okay.
To be offensive.
Yeah, and Star Trek isn't offensive. Like, how do you get offended by Star Trek?
I mean, there's kissing on there.
Sure. That's a little racy.
That's immorality, yeah.
But it's like it's from like the 60s and the 70s, yeah.
Right. No, but so like if it was like certain episodes my parents would let us watch with them. It was like their little secret hobby.
Yeah, so like the Trouble with Tribbles, that's okay.
Oh yeah. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me.
But you guys did never, I assume that you guys wouldn't go to like haunted houses. Because we would go to like a haunted house from time to time. We drink MD 2020 and then we go to the haunted house.
I don't understand why anybody drinks that stuff ever.
Because it was sometimes slightly difficult for us to get alcohol when we were like 18, 19, 20, not of age yet. And then we had to just be like, okay, what's the most bang for the buck that like the most people can find like palatable? And so that's what we would get.
I can't. I just can't. And with that stuff, cursed be. Anyway, so I've never actually been to a real haunted house. Like, I know there's some really good ones. Yeah, and I know there's like good ones in our area that are like super scary. Right, like it's going to be next year anyway. And I know I really want to go to like an actually scary one. But in my heart, I know that I truly hate jump scares. So my husband does not want to go to a haunted house with me because he knows that I will probably break several bones in his hand from squeezing it so hard. Listen, I have really good grip strength and I hate jump scares. This is not a good situation for my husband. So I don't know. Like, I like being scared, like ghost tours. Oh yeah, totally. I just like psychological thrillers. Sure. I just don't like jump scares.
So you said that you haven't been to a real haunted house.
Yes.
So that like that's like a caveat that you put in, but like what does that refer?
Have you heard of the Hallelujah House, Christian haunted house, what's commonly referred to as Scare Them to Jesus?
So is it like the episode of King of the Hill where the lady from church sets up a hell house and like is like trying to get Bobby to come to it? And
yes, it's exactly like that. So like,
oh my God,
Hank is making a haunted house at the school and this lady like freaks out about it.
And it's like Hank's favorite thing that he does. Yeah.
Right. And she does like her own haunted house at her house where it's like, this couple had sex before they got married. Now they're in the morgue. Like, it's like that.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is absolutely 100% exactly like that.
And Bobby, like, puts on, like, the devil costume, and he, like, all he wants to do is prank people. All they want to do is, Hank and Bobby, they just want to prank people. But, like,
and she's like, the Satanist TP'd my house.
And they killed my cat. Mm-hmm. Even though, like, she, like, ran over her own cat.
She ran it over. Right. So that whole episode, the first time I saw it was a while back, and I just cracked up because I don't know, like, were you aware that exists in real life?
You know, I think I was peripherally aware that such a thing did exist, but it was sort of like the thing where somebody that I know from school would tell me that it exists, and I would be like, ha ha ha, that's so stupid. Like, these people are so, like, such weenies. You know?
So I have both been to these sort of things, and I actually was an actor in one. So really? I thought we could get all spooky Halloween and kind of talk about these Christian haunted houses.
This is our Halloween episode. So if there ever was a time to do it, now is the time to do it.
So you saw, like, in the King of the Hill episode, right? Like, it's like the dangers of drugs and like dangers of premarital sex and like
it's like a Dare.
Right, it's like sponsored by Dare.
You know what it's like? It's like in Freaks and Geeks when they had like the play where the anti-alcohol PSA. Like that's what I always assumed it was like. Yeah. So
it really is kind of like that. So they're set up like either like an actual like a regular haunted house where it's like separate scenes, and each scene or each room is supposed to be scary on its own. Or what's more common now is a walkthrough drama. So it's one story, like from start to finish, and you go to one room and you see 5 minutes of the story, and then you go to the next room and you see the next 5 minutes of the story. So that allows them to present the entire drama. Like if it's an hour-long drama, they can present that, if they're open for 5 hours, they can present it 10 times because they get a group through every half hour.
That's actually really kind of cool. Like a live theater show. Like, because I've heard of plays that you can go to that are like that, where you're not just like sitting in a seat, but like where you're in the house watching the events unfold.
Right. And as these things have become more common and like more popular and been moneymakers for the church or been like brought a lot of people in for the church, it's become more common to do it like a walkthrough drama because you can get more people through in the same night. Some of these can be really well done, and some of them can actually be scary. So you might get a topic like someone didn't listen to their pastor and they drove drunk and they got in a car accident and they went to hell. And like the car accident scene might actually have movie level special effects makeup. And then like when you get to the hell scene, they might have like space heaters going and actors dressed as demons jumping out at you from the shadows. So a lot of places put actual effort into these.
Wow, that's really quite impressive. I feel like Ron Burgundy when I just but like would the situations where people like get killed, would they be realistic, or would it just be like a bunch of silliness? Like would it be like, oh, you were a drunk driver and you got in an accident and like then there would be like blood and guts and stuff, like that's kind of like realistic? Or would it just be like, oh, you had sex and then you immediately got HIV and died? Like,
okay, so it totally could be either one of those things or anywhere in between. So it could be like totally realistic, like, you know, oh, well, you got hit by a drunk driver. It was like a random accident. And we're going to show that with like great special effects makeup and fake blood running everywhere. There is always a risk of like bad or cheesy acting.
Oh, of course, of course.
And sometimes it definitely is like, oh, you had premarital sex one time. And then now you're in like the next scene, you're in the hospital dying of AIDS. Like that's totally a thing that they put in these places, which is completely dumb and unrealistic. Jeez, I have to try that again. Completely dumb and unrealistic.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to lie to people to get them to make responsible decisions.
Okay,
yeah.
So I found about this one haunted or Scare Them to Jesus, like Hallelujah House online, that one of the plots, like this young woman is confused about her sexuality, like she doesn't know if she's gay or not, and then somebody at her school accuses her of being a lesbian, and then she immediately goes and commits suicide because of the shame of one random person accusing her of being gay.
Wait, she was accused of being gay and then she went to hell?
So I don't know if the point was that like she went to hell, but more like the devil won in her life and she never got to have a future. So it's not super clear. Like I didn't get to see what the end of that logical arc was.
That feels like that's more of like an anti-bullying PSA than it is like a
right.
anti-gay PSA.
So like I think that illustrates my point though, because these can be really coherent. Like whether I agree with their conclusion or not, the story at least made sense. And then some of them are very off the rails. You know, you tried alcohol once and became a heroin user. So anyway, you go through a storyline, and then typically the second to last room would be hell, and that would feel a lot like a regular haunted house because there's special effects and there's fog and you've got actors jumping out at you, and then like the more intense ones, the actors might be allowed to touch you, just like in like a really intense regular old haunted house. And then after that, you end up in a room that represents heaven, and like and then you get like the plan of salvation there. Like they ask you if you want to get saved.
But you didn't just go to these as like an event. You actually got to be in, like you got to play the characters in these sometimes.
So I did get to participate in one, and it was really awesome. But
wow.
Before it's going to make any sense, like the specific thing that I was in, I have to tell you about how the concept of this shifted when the IFB specifically got a hold of it.
Okay, please do, because this sounds really intriguing and really interesting.
So I'm sure that some IFB church somewhere has done all of the above when it comes to trying to scare people out of drinking or having sex or being gay or whatever. But the haunted house place that I specifically worked in had a more biblical focus. So what we did was the prophecies about the rapture.
So I am a Jewish man, and I've heard of the rapture, and I know like a few details about it, but like, could you give me like a Spark Notes version of it?
So I'll run you through the basics. I'm going to try to stick with the IFB interpretation of the prophecies of Revelation, because basically all people who believe that this is literally going to happen believe in the same like 4 or 5 major events, but they believe the order that they think they're going to happen in could differ wildly.
Oh, okay. So this is like another one of those like nerd things.
This is absolutely, this might be a bigger geek thing than the King James Bible thing, to be honest. So I'm going to stick to the very, very basics. It'll be super oversimplified because I could literally talk for like an hour and a half just from what I remember from learning about this. So people who take the Bible literally also usually take Revelation literally. So when it predicts all this insanity and apocalypse at the end of the world, people get really upset and they argue about like what order these things are going to happen in. But a lot of people take it as literal prophecy that it is going to happen. And IFB people who are biblical literalists really do believe that all of these things are going to happen. So the idea of the rapture and the tribulation are, at the rapture, Jesus takes everyone who's already saved to heaven. So they're up there in heaven for 7 years, and down here on earth, all hell breaks loose. So God sends his judgment on the earth. So we're talking fire falling from the sky, asteroids crushing people, plagues that kill millions and billions of people, swarms of locusts that have horses' heads and scorpions' tails.
This is sounding a lot like 2020.
I know, right? Please don't talk to me about how there is a tiny temptation to go back to the IFB because I'm afraid that this is the rapture.
Yeah, but like, what if it's already happened? If Jesus took all of like the saved people up to heaven, then clearly all the IFB aren't saved.
So
the only people that are saved are clearly like Prince.
It was like
David
4
Bowie,
people apparently.
Yeah.
So for this to be it, for this to be the tribulation, basically we would have had to be wrong about the timing of the rapture. Some people believe that the rapture is in the middle of the 7 years, so at 3.5 years. So if a lot of people disappear in about 2.5 more years, that would be a sign. But we'll see. Just gonna hang in there. Anyway, so about halfway through that 7-year tribulation, the Antichrist comes to power and outlaws Christianity. And then people are turning to God because all this destruction makes them want to get saved and go to Jesus. But by then, the government has outlawed Christianity, so the government has them killed for being Christians. The Antichrist builds an army, and at the end of the 7 years, Jesus comes back again with all the Christians as part of his army. And then the two armies fight, but the Christians don't actually do anything. Jesus kills all the bad people. Jesus wins, and then Jesus sets up a kingdom on earth for 1,000 years. And then at the end of that 1,000 years, I can tell you need a little bit more time to process. At the end of that 1,000 years, the devil gets let loose from hell. He comes back up here one more time. He fights Jesus one more time. He loses again. And then he gets locked in hell forever. And there's a new heaven and a new earth. And we all live with Jesus forever and ever. Sunshine and rainbows.
What?
So that's like super oversimplified. And I don't know if it would make any more sense if I got deeper into it. Probably not. And this is like this is not IFB theology. This is what many evangelical Christians believe is going to happen, starting with the rapture. Literally any day now, it could happen while we're recording the podcast. So you haven't like heard any of this before?
So I heard about people being like disappear, like, because I watched that Simpsons episode where there was like a Left Behind movie and then Homer was the only one who figured it out.
So it's kind of wild to me that you don't know about this. This is another one of just those disconnects of growing up in the IFB.
I've never read Revelations. I look at those books the same way that you look at the Book of Mormon.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read that. Okay, well, that was actually a really good analogy. And I do think it's going to be valuable to do an entire episode about rapture theology. So the technical word is eschatology, like escalator, eschatology.
You know what we need to do? We need to just have me, like, instead of like a homework episode where you review something, I have to read Revelations and be like,
no, that's not going to make any sense to you. I'm going to make you watch the Left Behind movies.
Oh my God.
Listen.
Is this going to be like some Kirk Cameron thing?
Well, yeah, Kirk Cameron's the star of those movies.
Oh,
I think Nick Cage was in one of them.
Really? Oh, I want to watch that one.
So that is just like off the top of my head. I could be totally wrong. Anyway,
and Nick Cage would show up in a Left Behind.
I'm pretty sure he would. I'm pretty sure he had like a bit part in one of those. Anyway, the rapture thing. Oh yeah. So I could have explained to you like the technicalities of how this happened and like pointed you to Bible verses and the prophecies and everything. I could have done that when I was 9 or 10 years old. So like this was like a major part of my life growing up. So it's like, this is another one of those things, like so much of my mental energy and like my headspace was wasted on something like this. as a tiny kid, because I was interested in it because it was the prophecy, and I was one of those science geek kids who like to break codes and stuff.
But instead of having you do actual science, they're like, no, here's some weird.
It's like here's what you're interested in. Look into these prophecies and see if you can discover anything that we don't know. But this is like, it was what I was interested in because I was that kind of like obsessive nerd child.
Interesting.
But anyway, so like these haunted houses though.
Yeah, back to haunted houses. This is a Halloween episode.
I mean, all of this stuff is kind of scary, right?
They would have the haunted house be about what happens to you when you get left behind.
Exactly. Because like there's all these like prophecies like earthquakes, fires, plagues, locusts, and fascist governments and outlawing Christianity and asteroids, like generally just like extreme and total death and destruction for 7 years. And the only way to avoid that is Jesus. So if you literally believe that that's going to happen and that it's going to happen as soon as tomorrow, what better material to use to try to scare people into getting with Jesus today? I mean, it's great material for a haunted house. Like, it's there. It's already written for you. So I want to tell you about, like, some of the stuff that we worked into, the one that I worked for, because, like, turns out Revelation is a great source for all sorts of just general gore and creepiness.
Apparently, Charles Manson used to read Revelations over and over and over again, and that was one of his big inspirations for him committing various murders and trying to spark a race war.
Oh, yeah. I'm 0% surprised at that at all. So some places call these like hell houses or hallelujah houses or whatever. The one that I worked for had an actual title, so it was called Judgment Nights. And I do have to give credit. The church I was working, so this is like a satellite church of First Baptist Church of Hammond. And the church worked incredibly hard to get these things together. So I do have to like give credit. It was a fun job. It was like this was replacing my weekly volunteer activity at Hyles-Anderson College. So I got to stay out late and work on this the Judgment Nights. I got like extra off-campus passes to go work on stuff for this. Like I did, yeah. It was super cushy to be a student and get to work for this because you got a little bit more your own. You got to kind of be your own boss a little bit instead of having somebody breathing down your neck. And it was super fun. So I do have to give credit where credit is due. This was like one of the best things to do at Hyles-Anderson. But anyway, we could do about 12 to 14 or more walkthroughs a night. And we had thousands of people come through every season. So we would do like every Saturday night for like the last Saturday in September and every Saturday night in October. And then towards the end of October, we'd do Friday and Saturday nights for like the last 2 weeks of it. And we could have thousands of people come through. And we really worked to have everything right. And we even had commercials on TV, commercials on the radio. Like it was a big production.
I've actually found the radio commercial for this. And it's a radio commercial. So I'm just going to put the audio into here and I'm just going to play it now.
Okay, go ahead and play it now.
Come and see Judgment Nights.
This is crazy, Doc. People are disappearing everywhere. We've got a bus crash. Joe, let's go.
We are next to one of
45-minute tours begin every 15 minutes from 6 to 10 p.m.
Reports are pouring in from all over the world of similar events where people's bodies have just vanished with no trace.
Listen, it is a martial law to receive the mark on the penalty of death. Now, give me the information.
They're meeting at 3rd and Foster, the old store building.
But you need to make a decision now. You never know when it's your time to die.
I can't. Not right now. I just can't.
Well, Stephanie, preacher, looks like we finally caught up to you.
No, Stephanie, accept Christ. Don't take the mark.
Come to the First Baptist Church of South Holland October 23rd, 29th, and 30th. The cost for this event is just $15 per person. Group rates of $10 per person are also available. Register online at www.fbcsouthholland.com or call us at 708-782-5055.
That is really funny.
So I'm listening to that and I'm like, oh, I know that. I know who that is. I know that voice. So I'm recognizing like half the voices in this.
That's so funny.
That commercial, I think, is from 2010. And then we had definitely stepped our game up a little bit as far as production quality by 2012 when I was an actor. So I was thinking, like, if you want, I can just go through, like, what the storyline was, like, what you would have seen if you were a person that came to this thing.
Yes, please. I need to know this story immediately.
So you heard that ad on the radio. And you were like, I have to see this.
I mean, I probably would have gone just as like a joke to see what these fundies were.
I mean, listen, I know I probably like romanticize this thing a lot because I had fun doing it. But realistically, as far as fundies go, we may have had the best one of these at any IFB church ever. Like the highest quality. It was actually good.
You're like really proud of this.
I am, and I think I romanticize it because it was like I got off campus.
It's like the one fun thing you got to do.
This is the one drama thing that I got to be in at Hyles-Anderson ever.
Because you're a theater nerd.
Oh yeah, and like I never got to be in anything when I was there.
When we were talking about like, oh, what would you be listening to when you got your headphones? It was show tunes. You would listen to show tunes. And
I'm still like, I'm still a modern theater nerd. Like I have on my phone, so on my Apple Music, I have Hamilton, I have the Book of Mormon, and then I also have The Music Man and Oklahoma. Anyway, so you found that commercial and you just had to see this show. So you would come to the church and you'd get your tickets and you'd get placed with a group of like, 10 to 40 people, just depending on how many people, what our volume was that night. So your group is going to get ushered into the lobby of the actual church building, like where the church was. And there's a scene set up and it's like a funeral. So we had a real casket, which is actually scary because it was one of the ones that, how the funeral homes will rent caskets.
So there's been a body in there.
There's been Lord knows how many bodies in there. Yeah, if you don't have the funds to like buy a $7,000 casket because the funeral industry sucks. And then one of our guys from the church actually had to get in the rented casket.
Ew.
Yeah, he was brave. And then we put makeup on him so he looks dead. Okay, so the scene is like his funeral. So basically the setup is like, it's like modern, it's like now, modern times, whatever. And this dude has died unexpectedly. And then his mother, so we've got this girl who's the main character. And I think her name was Stephanie, who like the character name was Stephanie. Stephanie was the girlfriend of the guy that died. And the guy who died, his mother is like, Stephanie, you need to get saved and trust Jesus because the rapture's coming. And then Stephanie's like, no, I don't need to get saved. I'm a good person and I'll go to heaven. I don't need to believe in God. Like, I'm just a good person.
What if she's just like, I don't believe in heaven? Does she say that she?
No, I think she was just like I'm an atheist. Like, I don't believe in God. If there is an afterlife, I'll be good because I'm a good person.
Okay, fair. Seems reasonable.
Right. Like they didn't do like any kind of like weird, out of the way argument. So anyway, after you see this funeral scene, you go into a darkened room. And then you sit in like pews kind of, and you watch a short video that we had produced and like done all the work for, and explains like the events of the rapture. So it's like, you have now lived through the rapture and this is what it's all, so many people have been raptured and like there have been fires and there have been locusts and there have been plagues.
Wait, what percent of people have been raptured?
I don't know. What percent of people are Christians? Not counting Catholics.
Not counting, I don't know.
Catholics aren't really Christians if you're an IFB, which, okay, whatever. Not like we're the originals or anything. So anyway, the lights come up from this video and it's like explaining like the destruction that you've lived through in the post-rapture world. And you suddenly find yourself in an emergency room. So that's like the first big scare. So like while the lights are down from the video, there are curtains that get moved out of the way. And then as soon as the light comes up, like there's extras with blood and guts all over them, like screaming and running through the room. So that's like your first like big jump moment.
Oh,
because you go from watching a video in the dark to like being in an emergency room with people screaming and there's like fake blood. And I learned to do like special effects, blood and wounds for this thing. So I did some of the special effects for that. The idea is that like after the rapture, people who were saved and were driving a car at the time, for example, disappear. People who were safety workers just disappear. So the immediate thing that happens is like a lot of injuries and deaths from that. So you as a visitor, you're getting like kind of hustled through the emergency room triage area and somebody dressed as a doctor is like getting you through.
Clearly an unsaved Jewish doctor.
Oh, sure. We could go with that. So he's asking you like, please leave so I can get out of my emergency room. And he's like pushing you out the back door of the church.
I mean, that's fair. You shouldn't be in there.
Right.
He's got a job to do. He doesn't need extra people, especially, carrying, there's open wounds. There's a risk of infection there.
Right. So they're like hustling you out. So you go from like this peaceful kind of deal. All of a sudden there's people yelling at you. There's people like hustling you through places, and you get like kind of pushed out the back door of the building. And then you're in the scene where I worked.
Okay. So so who did you get? Did you get to be like the girl with like the meat cleaver through your head, or you get to be like a nurse or something? Or were you just like a regular unsaved person?
So the scene that I was in is like a later on scene.
Okay.
So I'm a car accident victim, and I've got like blood and guts everywhere. I learned to do like the latex like wounds and everything. It was really fun because I went back to I was living at Hyles-Anderson College at the time, and I would go back to the college every Saturday night just covered in latex like wounds and blood and everything. And that was super fun because I scared the security guards at the front desk. It was great. So I'm like a car accident victim, and I'm missing my kids. So I'm like trying to find my children. Like, where are my kids? So I'm like lying in. So as you get hustled out of this emergency room scene, you almost have to step over me to get to the next scene that you're supposed to, the place where you're supposed to be standing for the next scene.
So like, how did they do the car accident?
Okay. So the car accident was super cool. We actually bought a scrap metal car that had been junked. Oh. So we scooped out some ground underneath the front bumper so that it could look like somebody was wedged under there. And then we had an actor who was real thin and could slip under the car.
Wow.
Yeah. So we actually had a dude sticking out from under the car.
That's impressive. That's really cool.
And then I'm lying in the pathway and I'm screaming. And by the way, this is how I found out that I can scream loudly enough to be heard a mile away.
Wow.
I have a great stage scream.
You're screaming. So you're screaming for your children. So I assume your children have been raptured.
Raptured or separated from me. So some Christians think that babies get raptured, babies and small children. And then some people think that they don't if their parents are not saved. So it can kind of be like a point of contention for people. So the church didn't take a direct stand on it. They were just you're missing your baby. So I'm pulling on people's sleeves. You gotta help me find my babies. That was fun.
We see all the blood and guts, which I've got to hand, so far, I've got to hand it to the IFB. A+++ for execution on this. And the junk car thing, that's an excellent,
So I told you.
Very well, you were not making it up.
No, we worked really hard on this. We had 6 or 7 scenes, and each one of them was incredibly detailed. We bought a junk car. Yeah, we went all out for this.
So I assume there's going to be a scene where Jesus comes back too.
Actually, no
special effects for that. No.
So the Jesus coming back bit is 7 years after the rapture. So we don't make it to that point in the story narratively because we're still following that main character, Stephanie. Remember? So her boyfriend had died, and she shows up on the scene of this car wreck. It's what is that word? Exposition. We find out that it's been a couple years since the rapture. And she has survived so far. So she survived all these plagues and firestorms and stuff. But she's not become a Christian, and she has also not taken the mark of the beast. So she's kind of she hasn't sold out to the devil yet, but she also hasn't gone for Jesus yet. She's still undecided. And then because she hasn't taken the mark of the beast, the one world government soldiers show up to find her and take her away.
Whenever anyone starts going on about quote unquote one world government, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory alarm bells start going off in my head. Yeah. If you ever let me guess, I bet that George Soros is their leader or some shit.
Oh, probably. Which is very weird because I just found out that George Soros is Jewish. I had no idea. I thought he was.
Really?
Yeah. So I was told he was until I talked to you about this, I was told that he was some kind of Colombian drug lord.
Really? What?
Yeah. So I was told that George.
He's a Hungarian Jewish man.
I had no idea he was Jewish until I said something about him. And you're don't be anti-Semitic on me here. And I was what? He's Jewish?
Yes. Yeah, that's the whole thing is that people will talk about we're gonna have a whole other episode where we have to talk about that. Yeah, actually, I've got a brief story about this because outside of the sheer absurdity, at least to me, of the rapture as my issue with the story is them locking up Christians, right? So fundamentalist Christian, and I see this all the time, is that Christian fundamentalists tend to often have a huge victim complex, obsessed with this idea that they are being persecuted. And then they have all of this, oh, everybody else has to go to hell thing, like as almost like a revenge for this non-existent persecution thing. Like it's like a separation thing where they're like, the entire world is persecuting us, but we're going to have the last laugh. And it just like...
Mm-hmm. No, it really is. And I wish I was smart enough to fully understand how much the teachings on the rapture tie into this victim complex thing, because I do feel like it's more prevalent among Protestants in general, like people who were told that their spiritual ancestors were martyred and tortured by the Catholic Church. But on the other hand, like I can't help but notice that people who fervently believe that Christians are currently persecuted in America by things like Starbucks cups are almost certain to believe in a literal rapture and tribulation. However, I know people who are very into one of those things and don't believe the other. I know people who are super literal about the rapture, but will laugh and tell you, no, red coffee cups are not persecution. The early church got persecuted. We don't. That's funny. So like, it's not, the Venn diagram isn't a circle. The Venn diagram is kind of close to a circle, and it's got enough overlap that it makes me really think. But you can't say like the Venn diagram's a circle on this thing. Anyway, I haven't been able to get like a good link between those two ideas yet, but I really feel like there is one there. So hopefully either I will learn more about how to parse these things out and learn about them, or somebody will tell me how to make this like anthropological link.
Hey, Gavriel here. If you enjoy the Leaving Eden podcast, head over to our Facebook group, Eden Exodus, where you can talk to other fans, ask us questions, and share memes. That's facebook.com/Eden Exodus. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Leaving Eden podcast, and you'll get access to extended and uncensored episodes. You can also support our show by recommending it to your family and your friends. The Leaving Eden podcast is a fully independent podcast, and we really appreciate your support. And now, back to the show.
So what happens after you lose your children?
Oh, in the play. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of the end of my character's storyline. The soldiers come in to drag away the main character, and I get like kind of kicked to death by the soldiers. Like they're like, shut up in the process. Well, there's kind of a funny story there. So I had it set up. So like apparently I'm a method actor. So I had it set up with the guy who played the soldier to like gently kick me in the ribs, like more like a scooping motion. And then I would like way overreact and like fling myself into the crowd. And then like that would freak people out because I had all these like fake wounds on me. So like I'm like flying at you with like my eyes rolled back in my head. And that's scary. So one time the soldier got a little overzealous and he kicked me too hard. Like he actually kicked me instead of just like nudging me to get me to overreact to do my part. So I ended up in the crowd. And it just so happened that I landed on somebody. And it just so happened that it was a First Baptist Church of Hammond assistant pastor. So I was really embarrassed, but fortunately he was cool about it.
You touched a man that you weren't married to? For shame.
So here's the thing. For the drama, like some of the rules were slightly relaxed. Like in the same scene, the main character gets lifted up by her arms and kind of dragged away by the soldiers. And she was a Highlanders. And actually, she listened to this podcast. Hi, Amy. Love you. She said I could use her real name if I ever talked about her.
Okay.
We were at a satellite church away from the Hiles Anderson First Baptist campus. So people kind of like, oh, that's Judgment Nights. Like we get a lot of people saved. So as long as it's not too crazy, we'll let them do it, whatever. So anyway, from there, the main character is in a prison and the guards are trying to force her to take the mark of the beast. So she eventually escapes while they're torturing someone else. I remember there being a car battery in there. I don't know if I ever saw the entire torture scene start to finish. Yeah. But no, so they're like torturing somebody else and then she like escapes, but she gets caught and killed. So then the group of people that's going through the walkthrough, you go through a tunnel that represents hell. So we have fog machines. It's really dark in there. And there's actors playing demons who are like reaching out of the curtains and like grabbing at you as you walk past. So actually kind of scary. And then the group, like the last place the group goes, you show up in heaven And then so Stephanie, the main character, is there. And God is talking to her, and she's like arguing back to God, but like, no, I should go to heaven. I'm a good person. And then God says, well, you never accepted Jesus, so you're going to hell. And then like demons burst through the door and drag her away. And we actually had a very cool effect for that. We had a fire pit. So there was a back door to heaven. And
that's the one that I'm going to get in.
Fair enough. So outside of that door, we had a fire pit.
I get in on a technicality.
Sorry, I had to bite my tongue there for a second.
Back door to heaven. That's like that's a song that we're gonna
write now.
I don't know where I'm going. It's gonna be like a AC/DC knockoff of Highway to Hell. It's not gonna be Stairway to Heaven. It's gonna be Back Door to Heaven.
Okay. Anyway, we had a fire pit and then a grate over the fire pit in case somebody dropped her, and then a mattress. So these two demons would actually throw her over real flames, but like actually toss her out the door, like over actual flames, and then she'd land on this mattress outside of where the audience could see. So it was a very neat effect. Yeah, so we had like real special effects. You know, that was, for an amateur haunted house, I think it was pretty good.
What is the mark of the beast? Is that like 666? Because so is she supposed to get 666 tattooed on her forehead? Because if so, that's metal as hell.
Oh, now you're Bruce Dickinson. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mark of the beast.
Yeah, it's making me want to listen to some Iron Maiden.
Number of the beast. Okay.
I left alone. My mind was blank. I needed time to sleep to get some memories from my mind.
Okay.
What did I see? Could I believe that what I saw that night was real and not just fantasy? Yeah.
Okay. So 666 is the number of the beast.
I know from this. It's in the song. The song goes 666, the number of the beast. Yeah,
I know. So the mark of the beast might be that, or it might be something else. It's not clear. It's a mark that you have to have, like a signifier that you have to buy or sell anything towards the later end of the tribulation.
Wait, is that written in Revelation? Is that
yes.
in what?
Uh-huh. So if you accept this mark, whatever it is, you've basically given your soul to Satan. So even if you just like didn't know about any of this stuff and you thought you were just getting identification to buy or sell things.
Wait, is this where the Bill Gates 5G microchip COVID conspiracy theories?
Yes, it absolutely is. I'm getting there.
Oh my God.
So if you accept this mark, it means that you've given your soul to the devil. So basically, if you are saved, if you are a Christian, you are incapable of getting this mark. If you try to get it, you'll like die or it won't stick to your skin or whatever. People differ on how they perceive that. If you get it, you're disqualified. You can never get saved. So getting it or not getting it is a permanent decision either way. So even if you don't know like any of this prophecy and you get it because you want to buy a loaf of bread, you're still going to hell. So the prophecy says that you'll have to get it in your forehead or in your back of your right hand. And people did used to think that it would be some kind of a tattoo, which is part of where evangelicals get off like really hating on tattoos. But now the common theory is that it's a microchip that functions as like part tracking device, part credit card.
What?
So it's like it's an esoteric part of the prophecy, and a lot of people really believe it. Anyway, so basically, if you were a Christian after the rapture and you refused to get this mark of the beast, then they would kill you, and then you would go to heaven and join everybody else who's already chilling up there with Jesus, waiting for the 7 years to be over. Make sense? No?
People go to this haunted, like, are people actually like convinced by this haunted house?
So it's really hard to say, like, whether the whole like end times thing got through to people or whether people were just scared, like really scared, because I know for younger kids that came through, this was like for adults, this is a moderately spooky haunted house. There are a few scenes that are a little bit scary. For little children, this was really, really terrifying. And we wouldn't let anybody under 12 in without a parent. which is, look, that's actual kind of ethics.
That's responsible. That's responsible.
Look, it's an IFB church doing something sort of ethically. So this is why I'm still proud of being a part of this and like the work that I did at that particular church, because they're good people, you know?
Yeah.
Like I really, really believe in those particular people in that particular church and their desire to actually do right and be ethical people. Anyway, you know, I don't know if it's just like, if it's an emotional experience to see a theater show, like people who are into theater or Broadway. Like I know I saw Hedwig and the Angry Inch during Pride Month one time and just bawled for like hours.
I don't know that reference.
Oh, Hedwig and the Angry Inch is like, no, it's a very special musical, and it deals with like topics of like identity and being trans or being different from other people, and like falling in love as a queer person and like the complications of that. It is a beautiful play, and you really ought to see it. The music is it's all like kind of punk rock and.
Oh,
you know,
okay. Then I might actually be interested in watching that.
You would probably actually enjoy it. It's not a lot of like Broadway style music. It's mostly punk music. Anyway,
cool.
Beautiful show. Very important to a lot of queer people for a lot of different reasons. But I saw Hedwig during Pride Month and like cried forever. So like, you know, seeing live theater is an emotional experience for a lot of people. And then it's also like this beautiful October night and you're out in the middle of the night in like a different place than you normally are. And you're seeing something different than you normally see at a church. And the preacher in the tent at the end where that tries to get you to get saved. Like I know that guy, he was super effective. So I don't know what led to us having like a lot of results, a lot of people getting saved. It could be any of those factors.
Because you weren't just in like you would go to these too. So, like, if you went to one, like, would you have a deeply transformative religious experience?
So I totally did at the one that I went to in high school. I don't remember what the plot was at all, or like what any of the rooms were about, but I remember that the last room was heaven, and they had a guy dressed as Jesus, and he would come by every person and like put his hands on your shoulders and like say something to every person who visited.
Oh my god. So I have to ask, who did they get to play Jesus? I have to know.
So I think he was just the youth pastor or whatever of that particular church. So like taller white guy with brown hair and blue eyes.
Did they allow him to grow a beard or grow his hair out?
So this wasn't an IFB church. So this was like, I'm pretty sure this was like a Southern Baptist church. He didn't grow his hair out. He had short hair, but he did have a really nice beard. So
did they at least like let him have a wig or what?
No. So this was short-haired, blue-eyed, English-speaking white Jesus.
White Jesus. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I know how you feel about white Jesus.
No, like you ever go like when they're like, okay, they release like this is a picture of what we think Jesus looked like, and then all of the people in the comment section get mad as hell. Like all the people in the comments are like, no, that's not it. Like my favorite one though is when like I hear a story of like somebody having like a photo of like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes, in their house.
You know what and then like yeah, they'll have like a photo of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor from like the Star Wars prequels up in there, like from Attack of the Clones up in their house, and they'll think it's like a picture of, oh my God.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really sorry about bringing white Jesus onto our podcast. I know we usually try to keep this a white Jesus free zone.
Yeah, well, that's because white Jesus is busy telling people that it's okay to lock refugee children in cages at the border.
That's true. White Jesus is passing out AR-15s instead of fish and bread.
Imagine getting cast as white Jesus in a Scare Them to Jesus haunted house. Oh my God. Like maybe I should audition to play Jesus somewhere. I think I would look closer to the part than whoever this guy is if they were going to get.
I mean, that's totally so like all this guy was doing was going like person to person saying something really nice and encouraging. And I don't know what he said to me. I just feel like it was nicer. Like nobody was being nice to me in the IFB, and this guy like said something super sweet and like encouraging to me. And I like cried for hours. Like it was so, it's like such an emotion. I felt like I had met actual Jesus. It was like a big deal. But like, okay, so circling back though, are you saying that we should open one of these Scare Them to Jesus houses for fun and profit?
Well, we can't this year because of COVID.
Okay, next year when COVID is hopefully gone.
I guess if you're going to a scare them to Jesus haunted house, chances are that you don't believe in COVID anyway.
And
but
again,
yes,
Venn diagram's not a circle, but there is some overlap. Yeah,
definitely we should. I think that we should have a twist on it though.
Okay,
where it's a scare them away from the IFB haunted house.
Oh,
yeah.
So every room portrays a different one of David Heil's crimes. Oh, wait, no. So Jack Scott jumps out at you from around dark corners.
So I definitely think that there should be a room where David Hiles murders your children. #arrest David Hiles.
Yep.
But I think that having Jack Scott, spoiler alert, trying to molest teenage girls would not fly at a haunted house.
I mean, listen, dude, Jack Scott never laid a finger on me, but I still have regular nightmares about him, like all the time.
I think he's worth including then.
Oh yeah,
so,
no, like I have nightmares about him constantly.
That's unfortunate.
Haven't seen his ugly face in 9 years. 9 years.
I think in the first room, this is my idea. In the first room, you walk in. It's an IFB church service, right? So.
Okay.
Walk in IFB church service. There's a fire and brimstone type, like preacher boy giving a fire and brimstone type sermon where he's like, all the sinners are going to be punished by the Lord. Judgment day's coming, like, and only the righteous are going to be saved, like that type of stuff.
Okay.
Run of the mill IFB stuff. And so next room you walk into, it's a bar. It's like a restaurant or coffee shop or, and there's just like some regular like worldly folks and they're just talking, they're hanging out, they're having a good time. Maybe they're drinking some beers, they're dancing, they're just having fun.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Right.
So we've got those who like, and so it keeps jumping back and forth between horrible things happening in the IFB, but then the IFB warning you that if you leave and become a sinner, you get to be stricken from the face of the earth and then God's going to like throw lightning on you. But then in the next scene, you just see regular people, like they'll be like the movies eating popcorn, like with their friends, like, and the IFB's like, oh, you're going to get punished. And then you see people like, I don't know, like, oh,
like
let's go
living
ride.
their lives.
Yeah, let's go ride some go-karts today. Oh, that sounds fun. Let's go do that. I'm going to go hang out with my female friend without a chaperone and nothing weird is going to happen. Like that type of, yeah.
Exactly.
Like, what? They keep telling you that you're going to get punished and that people are going to get punished. You're looking at these people and they never get punished. And then you die of a heart attack from eating cheeseburger soup and nobody is punished. And then your whole life is wasted.
Okay. So I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
I do want to submit though. Okay. So after the first church scene that people are in, all men have to put on a tie and all women have to put on a long skirt if they aren't already wearing one. Just like a little taste of the dress code.
Not just any long skirt. It's got to be an ankle-length denim skirt.
Right. Oh, and non-binary people have to wear both a tie and a denim skirt. just to experience the restrictiveness.
Just because
we're inclusive, but everybody has to be restricted.
Yeah, the IFB hates them especially.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like they have to experience like the restrictiveness of trying to walk in an ankle-length denim skirt.
And the terrible fashion choices of having to be seen in public wearing an ankle-length denim skirt.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, unless you're Britney Spears and with Justin Timberlake when
the whatever that was, VMAs or whatever it was. Anyway, I also think so. How like people use like Barney songs and rock songs to torture political prisoners.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concept, but with like the most upbeat Hyles Anderson College tour group tapes, just like one or two songs from it played loud and on repeat.
Hyles Anderson tour group, that was your jam when you were a kid, though. Like those boys were like One Direction for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you can take there are always there's always a girls tour group song that gets pitched too high. It's like, oh, you really ought to be doing that in E flat and you're singing it in G major. And it can be very like, it's the kind of thing like it's not bad to listen to once, but if you listen to that one song that's pitched very high, it's 40 times in a row. It's very, very draining. And I don't mean to be rude because a lot of my friends were on those tour groups, but it's fine once and it is not fine after you've heard it a certain number of times.
And then David Hiles comes out, takes a child from the audience, feeds it amphetamines until it dies, and then embalms it and sends the body to Texas before the police can investigate.
Oh.
Hashtag arrest David Hiles.
Oh, that is truly scary.
And then in response to the child's death, everybody just tells the parents, oh, but go to God with your problems, and offers no emotional support whatsoever.
You know what else is actually like really scary?
What?
How much I feel like you grasp some of the insidious parts of the IFB culture. Like I feel like I've created a monster or like ruined your innocence or something.
I think
I've ruined you.
I was ruined a long time ago, baby.
I feel like I've messed you up by exposing you to this because you seemed like such a nice guy before I told you about all this awful stuff.
You thought it was nice? Okay, then.
No, I thought you were like, I don't know. I feel like I've taken a piece of your innocence with this, especially the Dave Hiles story. Anyway.
No, I don't know. I think I'm finally starting to get it. But we can have a room where so we have a room where you get berated for not memorizing Bible verses correctly. Yes. And then we can have a room where somebody who like you think is a friend snitches on you for breaking the rules.
I've been in that room.
And then we can have a room where you go out soul winning and then everybody else is good at it, but then you keep getting doors slammed in your face. And then there's like, there's so many directions that we could take this.
I mean, if you're going off my own personal experience, you could have a room where you go out soul winning and somebody pulls a gun on you, but that's probably a story for another time. But I do we need a room where you have to walk miles in the heat, like knocking on doors and inviting people to church. So what we should do is have like space heaters going and then have people on treadmills.
Or hamster wheels.
Sure. Although, okay, so I did just have a crazy idea though.
Yes.
So the dorms at Hiles Anderson are moldy, cold, partially underground, and almost definitely haunted. Do you ever think like if there's a side hustle for renting them out to people who want to stay in like a haunted, creepy cult college dorm room overnight?
Oh, interesting.
So I just wanted to say, like, I know there's Hiles Anderson staff listening to this. By this point, I'd be shocked if somebody wasn't tuning in. Hey, HAC staff member, maybe this is a way that you can stave off going out of business for a couple more years. Rent out your creepy, haunted cult college dorm rooms to like Airbnb guests.
It's like Scared Straight. Where they like send people where they're like, oh, you're going to go to prison and like hang out
liberal.
Scared liberal. Oh,
scared worldly.
Yeah. And and you can bring bed bugs home with you. You can leave Hiles Anderson College with a dozen new pets.
I mean, I really hope not. There is like a yearly lice outbreak, but I've never heard of bed bugs there. That's terrifying.
Who over the age of 11 even gets lice?
Dude, people who have to get on buses to pick up children every week in the winter in Chicago and bring them to church, and they are encouraged to hug said children and have said children sit on your lap to save space on the bus.
So you guys, I guess mayonnaise doesn't just go on like every food that you eat. It also goes in your hair to cure your lice outbreak. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's a staple. It's not just a staple, a food staple. It's like a medical supplies staple.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. By the way, if you ever have to do that, wash it out with cold water.
I hope I never have to do that.
Yeah, hot water will. You don't want to know.
So do you want to hear my idea for the ending?
So like the end of the scare them away from the IFB.
House, yeah.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so you go to a potluck. You have to eat like at least a few bites of what everybody made. And then, but like 10 of the dishes are really good. And you've eaten so much unhealthy food that you have a massive heart attack and die. And we can simulate the heart attack by shooting people in the chest with a taser.
Okay, sure, McCamey Manor. Yeah, we can do.
Okay, well, if you don't want to use a stun gun, then you know about how they have like those electrodes things that you can attach to yourself so that they can teach men like what it feels like to be in labor.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We can attach those to your chest, and like have you have one of those, and so you'll get a heart attack and die from all of this unhealthy food that you're eating.
Okay, sure.
Which is moderately safer. So
it's fine. I know CPR.
Yeah, so they shoot you in the chest with a taser or whatever. You get a massive heart attack, you die, and then you finally get to heaven. And you think, well, I guess it was worth it after all. And so you get to heaven, you're like at the pearly gates, and they're like, you've been a good person all your life, and you can come on into heaven. And you know what the first thing that you see when you get into heaven is?
What?
2 super buff dudes kissing.
Okay.
And then you turn left, and then there's like a bar where people are drinking, people are playing music, people are having fun. There's a movie theater where you can see any Hollywood movie you want. Randy Rhoads is shredding it up on every Aussie song. You know, there's a giant library, and it's got all of the most interesting books from all of the most interesting perspectives and people that you could ever want to read about and learn from. And people are wearing whatever they want. And, you know, every person who you were told will be burning in the fires of eternal hell, every single one of them is your neighbor living on your street. And they are the nicest, best, and friendliest neighbors that you could ever hope to have. And everything is fine. And you realize everything that you've given up was for nothing.
So I think as far as things that we could probably afford to do in our haunted house and get legal coverage for, this might be a little
GoFundMe. GoFundMe for the lawyers for all the people that are going to sue us when we tase people in the chest and they die.
Maybe if we get a lot of Patreon subscribers this year, we can have this available next year.
This episode, we just keep pimping the Patreon, man. That's
half of this episode is going on the Patreon.
Yeah, Sadie is going to have a baby next year, and so she needs money. Please send us money.
I will put baby pictures on the Patreon.
Yeah, but not on the Instagram.
Nope.
That's weird.
Nope, sorry. Patreon only. No, I think, I mean, I really like your vision. Maybe virtual reality will become more of a thing in 5 years, and we can do like, wouldn't it be neat to design like a virtual reality day as a Hyles-Anderson College student? Because I feel like you would pay to like do that, like for entertainment, like live a day at Hyles-Anderson.
Nah.
No? Okay, fine. I would pay to make you do it.
Okay, well, if I got paid, then I would do it.
Okay. That's fine.
I mean,
anyway.
because like it would be virtual reality, so I could say whatever I wanted to people, and I could just mouth off, and what would they do about it? It's virtual reality.
I feel like this is not fair. I want you to suffer what I suffered.
I don't know. I'd love nothing more than to make this happen. As always, there is a point to all of this, and I mean, I shouldn't need to say this. The whole idea, like using fear as a way to control people, is a really pretty terrible way to go about things. So like religion, theology, belief system, you know, that should be able to stand on its own merits and not need to use like fear as a tactic. Like, this is what will happen if you don't join. Like, that's just wrong, and that's just not okay. So like, as much fun as we've had making fun of the IFB and other like Christian, like scare him to Jesus haunted houses, like there's something like much darker at play here. That is like, they're pushing this like deeply, deeply, deeply traumatic fear-based messaging onto young children and young adults and like impressionable minds. And honestly, that's just really not okay. So I guess as fun as this, like, this is actually serious, and we got to be serious with it.
I'm uncomfortable with the idea of conversion by fear. So like, even if we were going to accept this paradigm that salvation is through Jesus and you have to accept Jesus to go to heaven, I have trouble believing that a conversion is sincerely from someone's heart if they converted because they went through a haunted house and they were scared into it. You know, we don't know who God is or how God's grace reaches people.
I mean, there's got to be somebody who like they're
like the concept of the concept of grace, like that's a valuable concept to me. And I think that God's grace reaches people through many different ways. And so I don't want to discount anybody who accepted Jesus at a haunted house. If you think that that's like, if that's your conversion story, hey, you do you. But I think
I joined the cult. How did you get into the cult? I went to a haunted house and it seemed tight.
But I think like even in a world where all of that is true, I think we should look towards people having a better and fuller understanding of what they're getting into before they convert to any religion. And speaking of musical theater, I now have Spooky Mormon Hell Dream from Book of Mormon stuck in my head.
And on that spooky Hell Dream note,
Spooky Mormon Hell Dream.
Yeah, on that spooky Hell Dream note, I think that it's time that we say goodbye for now. This has been the Halloween special episode of the Leaving Eden podcast. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Leaving Eden Podcast and on Twitter at Leaving Eden Pod. And if you have questions, anything you want to send to us, you can write us an email at leavingedenpod@gmail.com. Sadie, you want to plug your social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Sadie Carpenter Music and on Twitter at Hell Yes Sadie.
And I am Gabriel Hacohen, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GAVRIELHACOHEN. And you guys have a nice day. Bye-bye.
So thankful I decided